The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at dallasgenealogy.org.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to briefly mention how to get to our webpage. And it is basically the Dallas Genealogy. And I want to point out that it changed to .org because it used to be .com. So all of the Dallas Genealogy emails and websites changed to .org. So if you have bookmarks set, make sure that you note that. So I particularly wanted to point that out. But to get to our stuff, if you go to the events tab, and then to special interest groups, and then to German genealogy group, you will get to our page. And that has also changed since May. Lots of changes. They're basically updating the websites. And so everything's kind of going to be a little bit different. It's all with our new logo from last year. So you can see the meetings tab, the downloads tab, and the previous meetings tab. And the recordings of some of the presentations can be found in the previous meetings tab. And the meetings tab is where you'll find the current information, like, for what the current or next presentations are that are coming up, okay? Our Facebook page is the German Genealogy Group of North Texas. And so you can find us there, and there are questions to get into the group. If you don't answer the questions, you don't get into the group. So there's always a lot of people that just want to join everything. So we kind of narrow it down to those people who really have German ancestry. So to keep it a little bit more on track. Okay. So we do have some exciting news. We have become a member of the International German Genealogy Partnership. And basically there's benefits to the partners, and this website, basically if you go to iggp.org, you can look to see what the benefits are to partner societies, and we are now a partner society. And we will be, I monitor this and post things on our Facebook page that are, presentations in English from all the other societies across the United States that are doing German talks. We'll talk about some of those here in a minute. The contact to the IGGP is myself and Bernard. And so if you have a question, you can ask us, and if we can't answer it, we can try to contact somebody at a society in Germany to get an answer. And I would not do translations that way. Translations, there's some Facebook pages that help with translations and stuff. So this is not just for translating something necessarily. This is more for, hey, do you have a record about this or this town, or, that kind of a thing. And if you have a town and a specific person, and you want to know if they have information, then you can do something like that. And there's a current list of the partners on the website as well, so you can see who they are and where they are. And again, that's just easily found on the IGGP website. It also gets us discounts into conferences that they hold. They hold a conference in the United States every other year. Last one was in 2021. And because of COVID, it was totally online. And they used an app called Huba, and it was awesome. It's like Zoom on steroids. So it was really, really fun. And when they have a conference, you can talk directly to the people in Germany with questions and stuff like that. So those of you on chat, most of you have used your real names, and I appreciate it. If we don't have your email address, we need your email address to consider you a member of our group, because we have to have a name and email address. And so then we have a list of people who have attended meetings before and are quote members of our group, because we have a lot of people we email to that never show up. So those aren't members of our group, really. And that's important for the discounts for the IGGP and contacting the IGGP. So the next conference is next year in 2023, and it's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which, if you know, that is like a very good place to be. So it is going to be in person, and it's going to be via Zoom, Woohoo, the app again. So you can actually use the app at the conference and contact somebody, say, hey, meet me at the whatever, and it'll be just really a lot of fun. As this says, it's going to focus on the history and genealogy of the German ancestry wherever they live in the world. We will be running, some of the speakers will be, some of them will be pre-recorded and some of them will be live. We're going to have connection sessions that will be, we have to talk about whether they can be Zoom and in person. Sometimes it might just be in person at the conference because we can't arrange, Zoom or something, but they're working through all that. The hotel reservations are open now. I'm quite sure that the hotel connected to the conference center is full. Because when this notice came out, I posted it in our Facebook page, but within hours, that hotel filled up. I mean, it just went gone. And they do have, I think they might have a waiting list, I'm not sure, but there are other hotels within one block. It's not, there's several hotels there. But this is a place where they hold a lot of conferences. So the sooner you make reservations, and you can always cancel them without being charged. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Most hotels have a policy where it's like the night before or a couple of days before, you can cancel it for nothing. So if you're going to plan on going, do that. The 9th through 11th is the main conference. The 8th is Librarians Day, which is interesting because if you're a library, it's going to be focused on librarians for German genealogy, and more about that's coming out in the future. Or you can go to the IGGP website and see what they have available on that right now. Partners are also the day before the 8th. So I know I'll be there because the last conferences have been awesome. So I'm planning on going. A quick poll. Would you like to do the poll, Bernard? He's going to do that real quick. We need to know who is members of the Dallas Genealogy Society, just for tracking purposes. You don't have to be a member of the society to attend this meeting, but we need to track it. Did you find it? Lunch. Okay, can you click it? Or do we need to skip it? Okay, we'll skip it this time. And okay, we had meeting time change, kind of screwed up everything. All right, upcoming webinars and seminars of potential interest. So what we do is we look at what's coming up with German talks and where they might be. Although this one is not German. This is our conference coming up with the Dallas Society, which is David Paul Milner. Where's my brain? Paul Milner. He is not going to be here in person. He's going to be via Zoom. However, this conference is being held in person and Zoom both. In other words, a lunch will be included if you're here, that kind of thing, like we did today. But he will answer all the questions, and he will even probably be online answering questions during meal times and breaks and such. So that's coming up. As for German stuff, the Legacy Family Tree webinars on the 16th of September, Jim Beidler is going to give a presentation on German to Pennsylvania, the 18th century Odyssey, and that's free to watch it. The handout is if you're a member of Legacy Family Tree webinars. So you don't get the handout, but you can listen to it free. I think it's online for about a week, okay, for free. And most of these, if not, we'll check to see if they're on our Facebook page. The next one is Eastern European. So if you have Eastern European people, they're actually having a free week, Friday through Sunday. It doesn't make any sense, 24th to 25th. But anyway, they're going to have, this is and it says that it's for German speakers in Poland and Ukraine. It's going to be all in English. And it's going to basically talk about ancestors moving, in stages when, during all the acquisitions of countries and such. So it's going to be reviewing Germans who've moved to Galicia and Pomerania and East Prussia, Lithuania, later to Poland and Ukraine. Talk about all those migrations of the Germans in those areas. And there is a blog that they have, a blog spot that talks about the schedule in more detail. And that's the first website here. And this is the SGGEE is their organization. Okay, the next one is the Immigrant Genealogy Society. This is in California, Burbank, California. It's a German, mostly focused on German, really. And they have a conference on the 24th, which is done by Dirk. He is one of the leaders of IGGP, and he's one of the people that created IGGP, the International German Partnership. And so he is basically the chairman of the group that organizes the German genealogy societies in Germany. So and this one, they do charge $20 for offsetting costs. So that one's kind of interesting. How far back can I take my knowledge of his family? In other words, how far back can you really go in Germany? So, all right. Also on the 24th, the Indiana chapter of Palatines to America is hosting an all-day seminar for $30, and this is focused on Indiana. So it's mostly Germans in Indiana. Anybody has Germans in Indiana. Okay. The next one is Family History Library webinar. So this is Church of Jesus Christ. And this is Germans from Russia research, and that's on October 18th at 3 p.m. Central. And then Waco's having a lock-in, and some of the other libraries may start to be having lock-ins in the fall. And most of the items on here aren't specifically for German research, although there's some United States migration patterns and things like that that may be helping people, that they might need it. Okay, and there's a, okay, so anyway, Colorado chapter of Palatines America, October 22nd. And this is $25, and it's Engelbert Carpenter, who's the president of the Sacramento German Genealogy Society. And this is gadgets, contraptions, thingamajigs, and whatchamacallits our German ancestors could hardly live without. So that sounds like a fun one, but it does cost $25. Okay? And I recognize all those words. Okay. Legacy Family Tree also has one in November, which is finding Prussian ancestors in online archives. And again, this one's free and online for about a week. So these are places that you could look for, see if there's other things of interest to you as well. Our next meeting is in conjunction with the Dallas Library. It's in person only. It's limited seating and you have to register. And this is going to be archeon.de training. And this is done in conjunction with the vendor. He's going to give us some free licenses for the day. And so that's going to be awesome and a lot of fun. Hopefully people can come and find some relatives for the little bit of training time there. And the library has more information on this. Okay, done with that part. All right, now I'm going to start looking at my presentation of taking a research trip to Germany. And Bernard, can you put the handout in chat? Got it? Okay. And it's also on our website, I believe. I didn't double check that it made it up there. Okay. All right. So I have done many different types of visits to Germany. Well, not many. I did one that was totally on our own. I made no appointments. It was kind of disastrous, but it still worked out. And I also went with a tour group. I had a translator arranged for like one place I visited because I really needed a translator. So just combinations of this. You can do any of these. The younger people speak English. For the most part, the menus that we got were in German, but Google Translate works really well over a menu, and you can find something to order that way. When we went on our own, this was in 2000, so it was before a lot of technology existed. And we just had a travel agency book us hotels. And my mother was like in her 70s. She said, we're going to go now because I might not be able to go in the future. And so that's why we went there. And she wanted to see where her grandmother was born. And we knew the town, we knew everything. We didn't make an appointment, right? So we show up in this town. And of course, the surname is gone from the cemeteries because nobody with that surname has been there for a while. They were doing construction on the church. And so we asked them where the pastor's house was, or, just, and they didn't really speak much English, but they told us where the pastor's house was. And he wasn't home. Okay. No surprise there, right? We didn't make an appointment. So we started to walk along the street. Literally, it's 1 mile long was a town, just 1 mile long street. So we started to walk down the street, and we saw a lady in the field not too far from the road. And we asked her, "Do you speak English?" And she said no, in English, right? And she said, "Go to the bank." I'm like, "Huh, okay, thank you." So we walked down to the bank, and we asked for somebody who spoke English. There's somebody who spoke English at the bank. So we said what we were, who we were, and we had a piece of paper from my great grandmother's, that she had brought with her as a proof of age from when she came over to the US. And she said, "Okay, just a minute." She goes, "Make a phone call. The local archivist will meet you here in 2 hours." Okay, so went to lunch, came back. He was waiting for us. The lady from the bank went with and translated to the church, and where he showed us stuff. So you don't want to do that necessarily, but we at least had some success that way. So definitely make appointments, especially at people's homes or archives, churches, those kinds of things, so they can know you're coming. But you don't want to go without doing research first. So I'm going to talk about all the research we did before we left for Germany. Okay. So first we had to figure out, well, what are the goals? What are the things we want to find out? Because obviously you want to find out everything, but that's just not going to happen, okay? You have to narrow down what you're going to find. So I'm going to give you some examples of what my goals were. So my first goal was, how does Erna fit into the family? Well, my mother's aunt went to Germany in the 1980s, and this family had been communicating for a long time. So she went to the family home, and there's all these pictures, and we can identify everybody in the picture. And then this woman named Erna. So I asked my fourth cousins who descend from that, who is Erna? Well, I don't know. Nobody knew who Erna was and how she was related to the family, but everybody else we could find, right? So that's my goal, figure out, how does Erna fit into the family? The next one, I was looking at the records on Archeon, and I had this Johann Friedrich Meyer. I had his confirmation record, I had his marriage record, I had his death record, and I couldn't find his baptism record. I'm like, well, he could have been from another town, baptized in another town, right? Well, I just had this feeling that he was baptized in that town because his father was in the town. So, well, no, his father, I didn't know about his father, I'm sorry, didn't know his father. All right, so I wanted to figure that out. And of course, visit with our fourth cousins who descend from one of the families there. So how am I going to answer this problem of Erna and find the baptism, etc.? And is there something else I really want to find? So I had to work through this, and I knew that I could expect to find church records and civil records if I went to an archive. Okay, there's court records, marriage records, immigration records, maybe military records, etc., that I could find. So these are lists of different things that were running through my mind. What can I use to find these answers to these questions? What type of archives are there? There's every kind of archive you can think of. There's, just like in the US, everybody has an archive. There's towns, churches, counties, districts, and even community archives in Germany. Companies, institutions, etc. Well, one of them that we found wasn't really an archive, but it was a history museum, a local history museum. And this history museum was because there was a whole bunch of little towns that were combined together under the name Autel. And they had a local history museum for all the little villages that were combined for that name, for their address, okay? And so at this community history museum, we ended up going there twice because of a mistake, but we went there. And so my fourth cousins were with us at the time. And one of the daughter, Karen, had her handle on this butter churn. She goes, "Oh yeah, this is from our guest house. We donated when we sold the guest house that went back to the 1700s. So we know that this is from the family that was donated." Then we saw this loom, and the sign on the loom, that's another family that we have in our family tree in that village of Kathrenhagen. And so we knew that was from our family as well. So there was various pieces of things that people had donated that were at this history museum that belonged to our families in the past. That was kind of neat. And they also had pictures all over the walls. They had pictures, my fourth cousin Karen goes, "Oh, that's me, that's my mom." She was naming people in these pictures that are all, and we didn't get all the pictures of all the things that she was pointing to, but we did get some of them. And this is her grandfather that was killed in World War II. So I felt it was safe to use because they have privacy laws. I don't share all the pictures of them personally today. And so they had pictures and information going back for years on all the families that were there. Now they don't have genealogies, but they have a lot of other things at these history museums. And you don't think about them, necessarily, but just like here we have history museums, right? Got the same kind of stuff. So you could also email them and see if they have answers to some of your questions too. All right, where do you start? We start at the main archives portal for Germany. This archives portal, you can put it to English as this shows here. And I'm going to tell you some good things and bad things about it. As I scroll down here, you'll see a map and you'll see the different types of archives. So one thing you can do is you can just go up to the top there and you can do a find records. And yeah, you can put a name in here. It's not going to find everything online for your ancestor necessarily. And I'll show you why in a second, but it'll give you some things and some locations, especially if you have a unique name. Now, Schmidt, no, it's not going to work. Okay. It's, just have to be reasonable here. But the best thing to do is to probably select an area that they lived in, like this example here. And what I did is I selected Lower Saxony, which is what this is. And then I did a find in Lower Saxony. Well, this is a huge list of places in Lower Saxony and archives. And the community museum that I showed you wasn't listed here. The branches or departments of some of the archives aren't listed here. And I'll show you what that means as we go through some of the state archives. Okay, so we're going to be doing Lower Saxony, but if you go back up to here, you can see that there's a whole lot of information. You can go down in each of the different areas. All right. In Lower Saxony, I clicked on the state archives for Lower Saxony, and this is the region I was in. There's two departments, the Buckelberg department and the Osnabrück department are the two that we visited. So Osnabrück was the first place that we went to, and it has information on places you wouldn't necessarily expect because it's now in Lower Saxony, but it wasn't always in Lower Saxony. So you have to look at the responsibilities in this case. Look at every link you can click on. That's all I can tell you. So in this case, the responsibilities would show you what types of records they have and a little bit more about that. Now, yes, I went with my third cousin. Okay, and we had a common fourth cousin, just to give you an idea. What they did with the tour here is they showed us a bunch of the stacks in the back, and this was just a picture we happened to take, so we own these pictures. But they did a little tour. The person, the archivist, spoke in perfect English, and she had samples on the tables of the different types of records they had, and was showing us how we might locate them. And as you can see, there's some books just right off the shelves and others you have to get from the stacks in the back, which is very, very common, right? Well, we weren't planning on researching there because that wasn't where our ancestor was closest to. Our ancestors was closer to the Buckelberg archive because they were from the area of Schaumburg-Lippe. So the Buckelberg archive also has these areas of archive holdings, library catalog, and responsibilities. So again, looked at that. But we also looked at this book, which is here in the library, and we looked up the Buckelberg archive. It's a 2004 book, but it is helpful and gives you just some good overview ideas. And it would talk about the jurisdiction, how the records are organized, because they have a Prince of Schaumburg that literally descendants still are alive. So there is a record collection just on that family, okay? And they add to it when some event happens, and they are owners of that material. So if somebody wants to look at that material, they have to get permission from the family. So there's just all kinds of different rules. Now, I didn't put all the aspects from the book in here, but I wanted to note that census records and similar records, none. So there were no census records or similar records, and don't expect to find any, okay? It's very common in some areas of Germany. Military records, and some of these references in the book were just to other books or descriptions. Since this is 2004, there's no web links, okay? So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, well, what do you need to look online? Obviously, as much as you know about your ancestor's name, because usually it involves like, what, 2 or 3 first names, middle names, and then the last name. And sometimes if you just have the first name and last name, if it's too common, you're not gonna have good luck. But you need to get as much of the name as possible and the time frame and where they lived in Germany. Now, if you don't know the village name, that's your first step, is to find the village. Now, a lot of church records have house numbers in them. There's a little thing called NR dot, and that's their house number. And that is very important in the church records. If you see a record, note the house number. The spelling variations that you find for your ancestor, note them all down. So with this ancestor, if you look for the town, and we were just talking about this earlier, you look the town up in Meyer's Gazetteer. And if it's not spelled correctly, you can look at spelling variations and try to figure out what the town name was. And then you click on it and you can find where the nearest churches were. You need both the town name and the church name. So if you have that information, then your research is going to be a little easier online. So you're going to search for the family name to try to find it in the right town or the right church and the right time period. And you can also do a general search for the town, which might actually help you as well. I got many hints doing these 2 examples, and I'll show you some examples. There are some cases where the records aren't indexed by individual names, though. So if you're looking for a particular type, like guild records or something like that, they may not be all indexed. So you'll have to search for that particular word in German. So I'm going to start with archive holdings. The archive holdings for Buckelberg are an Arkansas website. This is the website for Bremen, Hesse, Lower Saxony, Schleswig-Holstein, and they also have records from other federal states as well. So by clicking, from that top Germany website, clicking down to your region and kind of looking through the different archives. In these regions, you will find this particular system. This is on the handout. So I clicked from the Buckelberg website. So I got put at the Buckelberg archive, just the Buckelberg archive, okay? And now I can do searches and I can do whatever I want here. So what I did was I did a search, just a regular search, and I tried a wildcard. The wildcard gave me iffy results, okay? It may work for you, may not. My Google Translate was having like all kinds of fits with this. So I just went ahead and used the general search. So I had one result. There was 41 results, for example, with this search. And if you see the image there under information, that means it's online. Just click on it and read it. So some of the things are available just right there, already digitized. Some are not. All right, so I was able to translate using just the surname Flentge, F-L-E-N-T-G-E, and I got 9 results, which isn't very many for a surname, but I did find some. So the first one I was hoping would be the right town, though. It said Meyer letters, ransoms, loans, levies, lawsuits, settlements. Those sounded so interesting, but it wasn't the right town. It was a different town That's why you have to know the town. The next one literally had my ancestor's name and house number 30. It's kind of cut off here. So it had Heinrich Flenchy, NR, or number 30, which is the house number. So I knew that was going to be my ancestor. So the box shows what I had to write down, the identifier, because that's how you have to order something, by the identifier number. All right, so then I found some other stuff. I used a J in the surname. I found this one, Flenchy versus Flenchy for deleting and releasing mortgage deeds. But the years were during just after World War II. So that sounded interesting. And for some reason I said, I need to order that. Okay, so we ordered that one. And then here is our ancestor was having a little issue with the parish. So there was a document regarding that. So again, the name, the town, the house number, all matched. I knew it was my ancestor, okay? And then I tried the town. Well, I had reset the search parameter. So I'd started back at the top and I ended up getting all the archives and it found 565 things on the town. So I thought, well, I better narrow it down to Boekelberg. There's only 416 there. Like, great, okay. So yes, I did sludge through some of these. And as I did that, I found some interesting things. So this is in German, but I'm gonna translate it for you here in a second. So I looked at the detailed pages and translated these, and this is basically the ground plan of the village Kathrenhagen. It contains part of the village and land, connection with location of the church, map of the land survey with owners' names. What does this mean? It's a plat map, just like the US plat maps with where all the owners' lands were. And this was for 1773. I'm like, yes, please. I'll take that. So there's some other things that, other terms that you might want to look for as well in the records regarding maps. They have land surveys with owner names that we talked about. They have topographical maps, ordinance maps, the distribution of the land to farmers from landowners. What does this mean? It means that when, you had the princes and they owned all the land and then and serfs and all this kind of stuff way back when. Well, when that system ended, then the land was distributed to people. And these are the records of when the land was distributed to the various individuals. And so that is an interesting document to find as well, if your ancestors were there at that time frame. So you have to kind of go back a little ways, to get to that period. There's geological, there's soil, and then there's the cadastral maps, which shows boundaries and property lines, etc. So there's several different types that may be of interest to you. So this just shows that, yes, there was one for Kathrenhagen, the rest of these, but I did not grab that. There's the other kind of maps, the geological map, etc. They were all available for the village. All right, so we went through that and got some items that we wanted to look at. So those have to be ordered ahead. So let's look at this library catalog. What's this library catalog? Well, it's all the things sitting there on the shelf that you can just go up and pull, right? So I'm not going to go through this one because it's just specific for Lower Saxony and such. But the bottom line is all the books that are sitting there on the shelves, you don't have to order them because they're right there, right? And the microfilms and all that kind of stuff. So they put them in a separate card catalog. I don't know why, but that's what these archives in Lower Saxony have done, or at least here. So, okay, fine. We went through and selected some items from that. Now, I want to point out that this village was once part of Hesse at one point. So it turns out that the Marburg archive has a whole bunch of stuff on the city as well. And it also has information on my family as well because of the history. So when you look at this system, make sure to look at all the archives that might have information on your family. I love this, and I should have ordered it, but rotting concessions for Hans Kort Flenchy and Frederick Flenchy of Borstel. Well, that's my family, of course. And the next one, I love this, hereditary loan of 1 mug to Catherine Hagen to Christian Ludwig Flenchy, number 30. I know that's my family because number 30 is their house, right? Why 1 mug? I don't know. There's probably a translation thing there. But so those are interesting to me, right? But it's not the archive I went to, but I could still order them online. So I ended up, we requested the things we've talked about, the NLA stuff, we ordered that. And then we wanted to look at the civil registrations because we had a 1903 birth of one of our relatives that we can't get otherwise because the church records stop on the church sites. And I want to find Erna's parents. Was Erna a Flenchy or was she not a Flenchy? Who was Erna? So I wanted to kind of see if I can find something about Erna. And then another user room item was the discharge of Christian Flenchy from the Hessen military. That sounds interesting, military records. And then there's all these family lists. They had all like these family histories all done for all the different types of family. I have 38 family names for this area because I've gone back a few generations because I had 4 immigrants from this region. And then you go back and so I had 38 surnames to look up. I thought, oh, wow, that's going to kill the day. So, you know, that was what I wanted to order. Well, little problem. The archive was under construction. So what happened? This particular archive I chose for 2 reasons. 1, because I knew they had stuff on my family. And 2, because my 3rd cousin was going with me who had never been to Germany. And I figured an archive in a castle would be kind of neat for her first visit to Germany. So it was in the castle and we had to go in a side door. You can see that little red box there. And we had to go straight up the stairs to where that window's blocked out. And we got this big long table in the hallway to sit at. And unfortunately, they were only able to bring us the things that pre-ordered, things that were ordered. Nothing on the shelves was available. And so we ended up getting these items. And I did ask the translator with us about to figure out Johann Friedrich Meyer's baptism. So we did figure that out as well. I want to give you a little information about what these things look like. So this was not Catherine Hagen, this is Langenfeld, but it's a 1774. This is the map that we got. And in the details, you can zoom, these are TIFF files. They give you TIFF files. They send them to you. You have to, you can't wait and just get them. They scan the items for you. And my ancestor was Johann Heinrich Biesner, and you can see 2 of his properties here, but he had 3 properties at that time. And so this is pretty neat to have the maps of the town. Okay, now the next one was the fact that my ancestor had done something for the church, and he thought it was in place of tithing to the church, which you have to do. Well, the church didn't think so. So they wrote him up and said, hey, you didn't pay your tithing, and then he didn't pay it. So they put it in 2 different newspapers. This was a packet that had all this history of him not paying this tithe to the church. And you know, so these are just a smattering of what was in there was the a register as well. Now, they did have the house number wrong, but I think that was just, he's never lived in house number 10 that we could find, but we just wrote it down because it was odd. So that was one of them. That was kind of interesting. And then this one was his concession contract to continue running his guest house, because the guest house was built in the 1700s, I think, like some, I don't remember, 17 something. And this was to renew the license for the concession or the guest house. And this was in 1884. So that's something really personal to the family. So that was kind of neat. And then this one was the Flenchy versus Flenchy deletion of Morgan notes. Well, guess what? Frau Erna Flenchy. This was pure luck. And her maiden name of Camper and her husband's name Heinrich Flenchy. So we found out about Erna. We were just shocked that this happened to be about Erna's divorce. And so she was not a Flenchy. We have her maiden name now, so we're one step closer, although the records for her husband are not online because of the time frame cutoff for records being online and available. The church records on Archeon stop about 18, whatever, 18 something. And so he's not on that. So he's in that gap period between, they have 130 years on births, is it? Or 100?
Yeah, lots of places are 100.
100 and 130 years on birth record. So anyway, but we got one more step closer. We know she wasn't a flinchie. And this is pure luck, right? Okay, so what does this cost? What does this cost to do this? Well, when you visit a Lower Saxony archive, it costs you 10 euros each a day to do research, or 30 euros for 5 days. But if you want a tour costs 3 euros. And that's in Osnabrück, we had a tour, the tour group. Now, the time for them to do stuff for you costs a little bit too. So it's 16 euro per quarter hour. Every 15 minutes, it's 16 euros or part thereof. So if they start at 1 o'clock and they're done at 1:30, right, it's 32 euros. So that's their charging for their time. Then they charge for copies as well. And I don't know the exact amount. I know we ordered all those things I showed you, a bunch of maps of all the different villages that our ancestors were in. And I think it was around 150, 130 euros, something like that. So what we did is we went to a money machine, we got cash. We had our translator pay them, and then they emailed the stuff to us where we could download it. We had like I don't know, a week to download or a few days to download it onto our computers and stuff. So it was all downloaded. Everything was scanned in TIFF, so it was really large. We ended up putting it in a Google Drive. Now you could order this from home and it would cost you the same amount of money, except you wouldn't have to pay the reading room charges. So that's an option for staying at home too, right? Okay. Well, the Germans have mentioned that a place called wise.com is cheaper for sending money to you don't have as much fees. And you can go and look at wise.com and you can do the translation from different types of money. And they tell you exactly what the fees were. Something like 100 euros was $7 of fees, or something really ridiculously cheap. So it's just an option if you want to send money, because this archives accept cash and bank transfers. That's it. At least the ones in Lower Saxony. All right, but we didn't talk about our Johann Friedrich Meyer. I had looked up his baptism, and there were these couple words behind his name. And sometimes they put town names behind names. If there's a bunch of little towns that go to one church, they'll put in the confirmation record, they'll put the name of the town or the father's name, kind of behind the person's name. Well, this had a word I couldn't read. And his marriage record had it as one word, and his confirmation had it as 2 words. Well, I had 2 different people translate this. One was a person that we'd been corresponding with that has a website without a lot of our relatives on it. And another was our translator with us. Well, they translated it as a pigeon swamp or pigeon dung. We're like, great, okay. So the father, instead of listed as Johann Hermann Meyer, he was listed as Johann Hermann Duvenbrucker. And that's why I couldn't find my ancestor's baptism, because his father's nickname was used. Because he was from Duvenbrock, I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but he was from this town of Duvenbrock, and he was living in an area of pigeon dung or whatever. It was Plattdeutsch even. And so that's how he got his nickname. It wasn't a farm name, it was just a nickname. And so I could not find a Meyer being born in the right period of time because he was listed with a nickname. I just, it's like blown away, right? It's like, what the heck? So, I mean, I could have dealt with it if I was in like Westphalia, where they use farm names and you expect the name to change in Westphalia. But here it's like, anyway. So we found that out. We're like, great, thank you. All right. So a visit allows you to do special things. Like we had a tour of churches. And this tour was by a retired minister of these churches. So he knew everything about the churches. And he pointed out this little bulge in the wall on the outside of this church. And he goes, what is it? Well, that's a cannonball from the 30 Years' War. We just never bothered taking it out of the wall. Like, okay, hadn't seen that before. So we saw a cannonball from the 30 Years' War in the wall. just little things like that. You just like don't know about the churches. So that was fun, seeing the different churches. We actually rented a car near the end and drove to some of the other churches, just looking at the outsides of the churches. We didn't make appointments. And our families are from an area near Schaumburg, Illinois, and they're sister cities with this area in Germany. And so at this church, we found a sign that basically roughly reads 17 families left this church between, I think it was 1845 and 1847. And they went to Schaumburg, Illinois. And it lists the families. And a lot of those are road names in Schaumburg, Illinois right now. And we're like sitting there going, our ancestor lived in this church, went to this church, and he left in 1847. Why isn't his name here? Well, he didn't live in the city of Schaumburg. He lived in Schaumburg Township. He lived on a farm outside of town. We thought, well, maybe that's the reason. And also, he didn't quite leave legally. He kind of went through, he went through Antwerp or some other port than normal. I mean, he like didn't leave legally. Okay, well, maybe that's why he's not on here. We don't know why he's not on here, but that really hit home because it's from our area of Germany. All right, so with a tour, you might get to go to ancestor homes, and they pronounce the surnames differently than you do in the U.S. They don't pronounce it the same way. In the U.S., the one on the left was pronounced Boney in the U.S. But they pronounce it Bona or some. I can't even pronounce it the way we pronounced it. Totally. Bruna. Thank you, Judy. And we didn't expect that. And they laughed at the way I pronounced mine, but that's okay. So both of these are, in fact, Judy, who's online, this person I went with, and she got to go to 2 family homes and meet relatives. And the first one on the right side, that one went back 13 generations, and her ancestor that immigrated is on that tree. And then she went to another one, and she's pointing to her ancestor on the tree, and the other one, that went back 500 years. And so she got to speak with the relatives that are descendants in those homes right now. So I didn't get that at all, but she had all the luck. So I only got a sign on a wall in one of the houses. This is a map of the old houses and the new house numbers. So I knew my house number was 21. And so this is a map of where the old and new houses numbers were in this particular village. And you can see they just literally assign them, oh, the first house built over here, second house built over here, 3 house built, they're all random. So they eventually, straightened it out for sanity purposes. And so this house has my surname as the wife's maiden name on the sign. It's very hard to read, but that's the best I got. So, oh well. We did visit our 4th cousin and their house, and they had cleaned out the guest house and sold it when their parents had passed away. And things we found there was permission to leave the country. And I've never seen one before. This was, there's 3 sons that came to the US. 1 came legally. The other 2 did not. Of course, ours did not. But this was left in the house showing that the person had legal permission to leave the country. And that's the thing on the right there. And I'd never seen one before, but this is the permission to leave the country. And it stayed in Germany. It did not go with him to the US. So I was a little curious about that, but I believe it's in case somebody came around asking for him or whatever, he had permission to leave the country. That was literally something in their house. That was from 1852, I think. 1850, I think it was 1852 or 1853 when he left. 1852, I think. And then the other one, they had this like 5-page will of one of our ancestors and just all kinds of, baptism, burial records, letters that were sent from America that we haven't translated yet, and just photos. I mean, we took tons of pictures with our phones, and we're still straightening all that, throw that out and translating all this stuff that we got. So visiting, you get a lot of stuff like that, okay? You can't get those things online. a lot of houses had names across the top of the houses. This is not one of our houses, but it usually, like this was in 1877. They had redone the house and put the names across the top and had, with the blessing kind of thing. And that's very popular all over Germany, not just in Westphalia, although you hear about it in Westphalia a lot. We got a book that we got from meeting some people. Basically, we ended up meeting some people, and it turned out I was related to her husband, but she helped us get a book of one of the towns. And I have them here, but you see all these little white pieces of paper in here? That's pages my ancestors are on. and it's things like, here's a 1561 list of how many animals they had, you know, horses, cows, pigs, etc. And let's see, and that's an example. They have, you know, what kind of farmer they were. And they had just, I mean, I can't even, just their house numbers, the new house numbers to old house numbers, 1783, what kind of animals and stuff they had. They had maps of the towns. They had pictures of the houses in it. It's just, if you can find some of these books, that's great. I got a second one. Once I knew these were available, I tried to find them. I found one book at, let's see, what is it? Goodwill online. You know, just doing a Google search, I found them. And two of them I found in Germany and had to have them shipped over. So they were a little more expensive to be shipped over. And one of them, you can get church books on the church, like 1800 years of the church. I have another one that goes from 800 to something, another church, or you can get them on towns sometimes. Now this particular area, there was a person or persons in the 1990s that did a lot of these town books and mappings of everything. So we're looking to find more of them because they're so helpful. I don't know if they exist for all areas of Germany. They just happen to exist in our area. Okay, we ended up making the newspaper even because we were with a tour group. And this particular, I know it's hard to see, there's a person in the hat in the middle of the picture. And the pastor that was telling us about our churches has the gray on it. And this happens to be one of Judy's homes that we visited with her ancestors lived at. So that was kind of neat. Again, a little bit different for in person. Other sites of interest. Some of the Germans use different sites than we do. So here's a few sites that the Germans use that you may not have used before. This is in the handout as well. And we've got a Europe portal, a federal archives, a church archives, and then these are the wiki source in Germany. You can find out what's in, you know, what's been digitized, or like the first one is contains digital copies of archives. It's all free of charge. And the second one is at least one public domain German language book. So it's just things that you can look at that other stuff I found. So that's kind of all I have. I know I talk fast. So are there any questions? Okay, I want to mention that next time is November 12th, is that right? 12th, I think it's the 12th. Yes. And November 12th, we will be meeting on the 8th floor of the library for Archeon training for that day. So we appreciate your time. And if you think of anything, you can always email us at ggg@dallaslibrary.org. Anything else? Okay. Do you want to call it a meeting?
Okay, yeah, I've got a response from the chat with 7 people on
Okay.
Zoom. Excellent information. I'm excited to get back into my German research. We send a list of upcoming events as handout. Those are on our webpage.
Facebook page. Yeah, we can't really put them on the web page, unfortunately, because we don't control the web page.
Right.
Okay, well, Yeah.
Army.
Well, we could add them to this meeting notes, though. We could add a little piece of paper that adds them to the meeting notes. We could do that. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. So you want to stop recording then, and we'll call it a. Thank everybody for attending.
This has been a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your fees have been supporting these and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining now. Go to dallasgenealogy.org and click on the membership tab.